sports are really important vehicles for relationships.
We have purpose. We have a why. We bring people together. We connect.
I feel like God is our greatest supporter and our greatest coach.
Welcome to Rabbi on the Sidelines. This is Rabbi Sherman from Sinai Temple in Los Angeles. This week we are joined by two of my new friends, all the way from the Holy Land of Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, and the city of Tel Aviv. Besides being Israeli citizens, these two young men are role models for the Jewish community and the basketball community. We are going to talk this week to Barak Swarttz, the trainer for Ironi Nets Ziona, also founder of JabStep, which we'll talk about, and how JabStep is coming to Sinai Temple. And our next guest is Joe Alexander, 2008 NBA draft pick, the 8th pick in the NBA draft. Went to one of my rival schools, the West Virginia University Mountaineers, played under the legendary John Beilein and Coach Bob Huggins. But this week, they are on Rabbi on the Sidelines to talk about sports and faith and their connection with Sinai Temple. Barak, so great to see you. And let's bring Joe in. And Joe, good to see you. How you doing?
Hey, Rabbi Sherman, great to be here.
Yes. So, Barak, we're going to begin with you because we have something in common. Actually, we have two things in common. The first is basketball, and we like to say we'll go from the ordinary to the sacred, but we're going to start a little with the sacred because both you and I are rabbis' children, but you beat me. You're actually the son of two rabbis. So let's start with the faith journey. Growing up as a child of a rabbi, two rabbis in Boston, what was your faith experience like?
So my dad is a Reconstructionist rabbi. My mother is a Reform rabbi. She wanted to go through the conservative movement at the time, was not able to.
That's what we call an interfaith marriage.
Interfaith marriage of some sort. Look, like it was very, one of the beauties about being a Jew in the States is every household kind of creates their own faith, their own tradition. And I spent 2 years in Israel. My family moved to Israel in 2001 for 2 years. My dad was on a program to study with few other rabbis from across the world, and we went back to the States, and holidays and Shabbat and all of that are very, very culturally Jewish household. I would say less heavy on the religious front. That wasn't sort of forced by any means by anyone, but easily when you're under the house of two rabbis, being Jewish is definitely the thing I'm the most proud of, and it's still that way.
I'm actually going to have you talk to my children because they're also under the house of two rabbis, but thankfully we have 3 basketball courts with 2 rabbis at Sinai Temple. So we're triply blessed in a double way. And Joe, your journey is just fascinating beyond the basketball court. We're going to get to basketball, I promise. But American, Taiwanese, Israeli, professional basketball player. Those 5 things do not belong in the same sentence. So Joe, who are you?
Yeah, it's definitely tough to find a category to put me in, especially in college basketball and the NBA. So in the NBA, I was actually the first Taiwanese-born player to ever play. So shortly after me was Jeremy Lin. But most people don't even know about my origins there. And most people don't even know that I'm Jewish or that I live in Israel.
It's on Wikipedia, so they know.
Yeah, they know if they go there. Yeah. But yeah, when I was in the league, everybody just thought I was, just a normal American from Maryland.
Mm-hmm. And so what was it like growing up in Taiwan, but sort of with also an American identity? And how many languages do you speak?
So I used to speak quite a bit of Chinese, but I've forgotten it because I haven't been over there in almost 15 years. And, I'm not really from America. I grew up overseas. And I think that that's most demonstrated in my basketball game. Like when I'm over here playing in Europe, guys think I play a little bit more like a European. They don't sort of put me in the category of a 3-point shooting American. And that is because I grew up in Asia. So, yeah, I mean, beyond the basketball, though, there's a ton of like cultural implications. I definitely felt like a foreigner every time I was anywhere in America.
And so we have Barak, who grows up in Boston, but moves to Israel. And I'm going to show a little clip in the moment about that connection between America and Israel. And then you have Joe, who grows up in Asia and comes to America and goes back to Europe to play basketball after an NBA career. How do you two meet?
Go ahead, B.
So I used to be a strength coach at Maccabi Tel Aviv, and at the time it was the last year which we had Adam Silk. He's a chiropractor who's no longer on staff there, but Adam Silk is originally from the States, moved to Israel a long time ago, and has a beautiful Israeli family. And Joe and Adam have had a relationship for way long before I was able to meet Adam. Adam hosts Thanksgiving dinners for fellow Americans, Israelis who are in the area who don't have their families here.
Nice.
if Joe, if I remember correctly, that we
met in the elevator, I think. Or no, in the street. I saw you walking up the street, and I was like, that guy he doesn't look like he's from here.
Right. Like like in the league, like you can kind of spot another guy who's not from Israel originally. You look like Cooper, Joe. I know of Joe. So we
kind of jacked too, by the way. You're a little bigger. You're a little bigger than the average guy walking around here. So.
A little bit. I am a trainer. So we knew of each other. We kind of just dapped each other up, like we kind of knew each other. And then we had Thanksgiving dinner. And then the second year again. This year we had Thanksgiving again. And then I play for a basketball team here, which is called Inter Aliyah, which the idea is to get kids from the diaspora to come together and play basketball.
So actually, let's stop right there. Inter Aliyah. So it's interesting because in the IDF and the Tzahal, we have our lone soldiers, our Chayalim Bodedim. But it sounds like even in the athletic world, let's call them lone players, right? That you come over to a country and they're by themselves and they're able to find family. And then you decide to say, you know what? Basketball is a way to bring people to Israel. So what is Inter Aliyah?
Inter Aliyah is an organization that brings together others who have made Aliyah, who have immigrated into Israel together, South America, North America, Europe, you name it, together to compete, to play together soccer, basketball. And last year was our first year as a basketball program. We started in the 5th Division 1, moved up to the 4th. And it is also a way to kind of connect and network. And Joe, as an American and Israeli citizen now, he was a name for our coach, who was also an American, who made Aliyah many years ago, AJ Mitnick. And AJ kind of organized and found a way for Joe to be able to be a part of Inter for a little bit of a capacity. And then Joe and I started to play together on the court a little bit. And that was kind of when we kind of merged things together more. When you're on the court, it's a little bit of a brotherhood.
Now, here's what happened. I saw Barak was wild. I was like, this guy's not here to mess around. Inter Aliyah is like a competitive league. It's all the guys come there to compete, but Barak was on a different level. I was like this guy thinks
I think it's fair to say Joe's correct. I'm very competitive. I also played not nearly at the levels that Joe's. I played college basketball. I played Division III basketball. I was injured most of my career. I'm a very frustrated athlete, and so me being able to still play, I think Joe was seeing some of that frustration. I'm very competitive. 5th Division, 4th Division, JCC, doesn't matter. So I learned a lot about Joe's competitive nature too, and I think we clicked in that way.
So Joe, your competitiveness. You also had God-given talent, right? So you go to West Virginia, very far from Taiwan and very far from Israel.
Yep.
When did you hear about this place called Israel? And when did you realize that you actually had some Jewish roots?
So I didn't know a thing about Israel. I never thought that I would live in this region of the world. I never really considered it. Like growing up in Asia, it's just like, Asia is as much of a different world from America as it is from the Middle East and Africa. I just never envisioned myself being over here. And like, even though I have Jewish roots in my family on my mother's side, it was also an area of my life I never explored. Like Barak said, like every Jewish home in America is its own little like subculture. Like in my house, it was such a subculture that we didn't even explore it or talk about it very much.
Wow.
And so basically, after I was done playing the NBA, I went to the D League and was G League now, and was trying to get back to the NBA for a really long time. And then I had some success, and I got this phone call from an agent, and he was like, "Hey Joe, you need to leave." I'm like, "What are you talking about? I'm trying to get called up." And he says, "No, you need to go to Israel."
Wow.
I'm like, "All right, my guy, I'll talk to you next week." Like, funny joke. And he says, "No, I'm serious. You got an offer from a team that you can't say no to, and you got to go." And I was like, "Bro, what are you talking about? Do they even have basketball in Israel?" He says, listen, team's called Maccabi Tel Aviv, and they offered you a deal. And this is a team, one of the teams in the world besides the NBA that you're not allowed to say no to. And I was like, "My guy, I don't know what you've been smoking, but I'm trying to get to the league." And so I called up my dad. I called up some other people, but the big call that I got was from my best friend growing up in China, who is now a sports agent. And he said, "Joe, you don't know who Maccabi Tel Aviv is. I know you don't know who they are, but you have to go." And a few other things transpired. We called every NBA team and asked like how close they were to calling me up. I didn't get any real bites. So I was like, "All right, let's get it." So I land here in Israel, and 2 years later, I'm talking to a reporter, and he says, like, "What's your family background? What's your roots?" And I mentioned to him, I was like, "You know what? Actually, on my mom's side, we have Jewish roots." And his like jaw dropped to the floor because I was playing for Maccabi.
So they didn't know, Maccabi didn't know your Jewish roots when they were basically recruiting you.
No, I was playing here as an American, as a foreigner.
Wow.
And so his jaw dropped. He stopped interviewing me, put his pen down. He was like wide-eyed. He said, "What did you just say to me?" And I think like 3 weeks later, I was basically going through the Aliyah process. And then I got a passport and was Jewish. And, it was Israeli, So, and then I started, exploring my Jewish roots, talking to my mom about it, learning about my grandparents and learning about the temples that they went to, and a whole part of my family history that I just never, ever talked about.
And so if that moment didn't happen, would you say that your Jewish identity would be different today?
I wouldn't know about it. It's kind of sad because it's something I could have been exploring my whole life. It's also an opportunity in basketball I could have been exploring. Now that I've been through basketball over here, I wish I would have come earlier, in my 20s. Wow. I didn't even need to go to West Virginia. I could have been playing for Maccabi when I was 18.
And you wouldn't have upset me so much as you killed my Syracuse Orange, as you can see behind me. Coach
my bad.
And so, Barak, we're going to go back to your story for a moment, because I'm going to show you this clip of how you were born in Newton, and then how Israel was a part not just of your Jewish journey, but literally of your life journey as well, and how the name Barak was doubled with Barak, and actually how Barack Obama helped you get through some tough times as well. So the story of Barak and Barak.
Massachusetts, just outside of Boston, and grew up with my parents and older brother. My first love is basketball. Basketball has consumed the far majority of my life in so many different aspects and environments, both good and bad. In 2001, at the age of 6, my family moved to Israel, where I went to school with my brother for 2 years and learned Hebrew. Living there is the single most important thing that has ever happened to me. Newton is where I was born, but Israel is home too.
Newton is where I was born, but Israel was home too. When did you realize that basketball piece was going to be a part of that journey within that connection between Newton and your home of Israel?
I got to say, I have goosebumps. I haven't seen that clip in a while. That video is...
I find the best ones, Barak.
Yeah. Look, when we moved here temporarily, that was actually the first time I ever played basketball. I was, in soccer is kind of the main sport here, to be honest. The basketball is on the rise in the last few years. Joe can also attest to that, especially with Denny Avdia being drafted. Anyways, basketball my journey, you could say, started here. I was a very good baseball player, played baseball when we went back to the States, but it was never something that I clicked with. And I just picked up basketball, and it was the one that I was really, really good at. But it also, it still is. But I also realized this when I was playing in Israel by myself on the court. It's the only thing that genuinely, for me, numbs the rest of the world. All the good, all the bad that's happening. As long as I'm within those 4 lines and I have a ball in my hands and I'm just playing music, no music, doesn't matter. That's my most meditative state that I can reach. And so I always listen to that. I'm at my happiest still. I'm 28 next week. And so whenever I get to play, that's why I still play for Inter. That's why I still try to I have this itch to play ball. And the combination of that beginning in Israel, which is now the place that I decided to move to, is just ironic, but I think also meant to be.
And Joe, Maccabi Tel Aviv, right? This is I've been to one Final Four, Maccabi Tel Aviv, Hapoel Yerushalayim. That was the most insane. I've also been to 10 Big East tournaments in Madison Square Garden. I don't think the time in Hapoel Maccabi Tel Aviv even compares to any experience, fireworks going off, et cetera, et cetera. Yep. What is it about Maccabi Tel Aviv? And by the way, the 1977 team, of course, which Tal Brody and On the Map literally put Israel on the map. What is it today that continually allows Maccabi Tel Aviv to be put on the map and allows Israel to have a more positive hasbara and approach in the larger world?
Sure. So first of all, it's a team that represents the whole country. If you can imagine in America, in any sport, if we had a team that represented the country, not officially, but culturally, that's what Maccabi Tel Aviv is. And even though they're only one of about 12 teams in the Israeli league, they're the only one that plays in EuroLeague, and they go out all over the world to represent us. So basically, the whole country tunes in to watch Maccabi. And when we play in big games, there's a big game tonight, a European Final Four game, the whole country and definitely the city of Tel Aviv shuts down. It's just such a cultural epicenter for Israel. And especially because we're really good at basketball. Maccabi Tel Aviv is a European powerhouse. And to have that reputation coming from such a small country where we're competing with teams from Russia, teams from Spain, huge country with basketball histories. It's really special, actually, especially when we win. And like you mentioned, there's fireworks. I just watched a video yesterday of the fans charging the bus of the Monaco team that came here, throwing fireworks. They have these huge orange flares that look like smoke bombs. And it's just madness. It's nothing like Madison Square Garden.
And this is a little video when you were welcomed to Maccabi Tel Aviv.
עולה גבוה ומניע שי. תשמע, ג'ו אלכסנדר, זה מספר 8 בדראפט 2008.
Joe Alexander, draft ב-2008. I love how they're talking about your NBA draft. So maybe just talk a little about the NBA piece, because I just read an article last night about that one-on-one, you are like the man. In fact, they said if some of the 1 through 7 picks were going to play one-on-one against you, you would have been the first pick. What is that uniqueness of who you are, and then what the NBA is? But then you also said you not only can make a living in Israel, but really live a meaningful life with basketball in Israel. What are those differences between what we're watching in the NBA playoffs right now and then what you're doing in the land of Israel?
Sure. So the first thing you mentioned, like, very few people know that. I'm surprised you dug that up. But yeah, I grew up playing in China, and in China, basketball wasn't developed when I was there. This is pre-2000. So I grew up playing one-on-one. I didn't really start playing 5-on-5 until my last years in high school.
That's crazy.
And then I didn't know what a pick and roll was till I got to college. I didn't know what a scout team was until I was on one at West Virginia University. So I grew up not playing basketball. I grew up playing one-on-one. So like when I was going through the draft process, I wasn't even supposed to get drafted, but they put me in the gym and said, play one-on-one. And I was like, you guys are dead. So to me, there was a point where I thought I was the best player in the world at one-on-one. And, it's a big piece of why I got drafted so high. But I can't remember the rest of your question because I was so excited about that one.
So what is that difference in terms of living in Israel and playing there? And then how would you, if you went back to Coach Huggins right now on the West Virginia team and said, everybody here wants to make the NBA, but try this out in Israel, what would be your pitch to them?
Sure. I think there's a few different pieces. Like the first one is strictly from the basketball side, which is players in America, they just don't understand what a real basketball career is, and that Europe is their real opportunity, if they even have one in Europe. Like most guys in college, even at the upper echelons, the top tier players in the best schools, they can't play over here. We have NBA guys getting cut from teams, especially in EuroLeague, where you're making millions of dollars. Like at the very top teams over here, nobody gets in here and plays over here. So if I was back at West Virginia, I'll be telling guys, like, you should be not only considering and thinking about Europe, but you should be like shooting for it because you're probably going to miss it anyways. But in terms of Israel itself, like Israeli basketball is to a point now where everybody in Europe is trying to get here. Like when I first came here 8 years ago, it was like a popular destination and people were kind of like lukewarm about when they signed here. But now it's to the point whenever I talk to younger guys, they're like, I hit the lottery because I just signed with an Israeli team. That's the way that it's looked at now in Europe, because the basketball culture here is one that looks to preserve your body. Like they're not trying to run you into the ground like in Russia and Spain, but also every single city here is on the beach. So the American players basically come here and they live like kings. Like it's a Mediterranean climate. It's a beautiful place. And also the basketball has now reached a point that it's respected as much as Spain and Russia and Italy, even sometimes more than Italy now, which is a big difference from when I was in the NBA. When I was in the NBA, Italy was one of the top tier countries, but now Israel is. So it's really come a long way. It's a special place for basketball.
And so, Barak, here's one other clip when you talked about you've gone through quite the journey, physical anguish, mental anguish, emotional anguish. And this is what you talked about, how basketball has literally saved you.
Things in my life which are true outlets for me. Things that make nothing else in the world matter in the moment. Absolutely nothing. Things that put a pause on time. Things that numb the world. In fact, in my life, there's really only one thing that has been this outlet I'm describing. Basketball. Basketball is the only thing that has ever allowed me to fully clear my mind and be in the moment. In the midst of all this, it felt like I wasn't always in the moment. Stepping away from everything, stepping away from being consumed by this process, allowed me to learn a lot about myself, have experiences that I would never take back, and give me time to reflect.
There's a new book by Professor David Hollander at NYU. It's called How Basketball Can Save the World. But based on that video, it's actually how basketball can save individuals as well. So take us through maybe some of that, not just, physical injury, but why did you decide to fight through this to continue to do what you're doing today, which we're going to talk about, of how we met and how you're going to bring that to Sinai Temple?
For sure. It's a laundry list of the different injuries and things that I've dealt with as an athlete. And unfortunately, I still have things that I cope with. But I would say, I'm not sure if this was I think it's just like the nature I picked up, maybe playing basketball with my brother. He's the one who basically taught me how to play basketball. But I'm a big person on perseverance and being a resilient, gritty human being. And I just remember like the first major injury I had when I was 16. I in layman's terms, I broke my back. And so a lot of people who knew how competitive I was were saying like, just hang up the shoes, long rehab process, whatever. And the rehab process was tough. The mental game was tough. And I'm still not the same as I was when I was 16. But the almost 12 years of physical adversity it's been of just battling injuries it's just also built a really resilient, competitive nature of myself to never give up on anything that I want to do. So if I can apply that same work ethic that I do when it comes to battling injuries or adversity, it's the same way that you would get hit with any other form of adversity, where you're going to look it in the face. You're going to say, all right, I'm going to let you dictate what I want to do. Or you're going to look it in the face and say, I'm going to do what I want to do. Basketball for me was always a non-negotiable, whether it was playing it or playing basketball or being involved with it. Mm-hmm. And so if I look at the different periods of my life, I played college basketball, I played rehab. I was injured for most of my time. I studied marketing, got a degree in marketing management. I worked in Big 10 companies, high tech, TripAdvisor, the Celtics, startups, everything. I was like in sales, marketing, that whole shebang. Graduated, was in a high tech company selling email marketing software that I felt no significance and meaning to what I was doing. Mm-hmm. And it's because I stepped away from the things that I love the most about life. And so I walked away from that and decided to just go full on how do I combine my passions of Israel and Zionism and also basketball. Of course, I wasn't able to be a basketball player. That doesn't mean I can't be involved with basketball. How can I use my adversity, the experience that I've had physically, mentally, emotionally, and apply that to some sort of a career? Well, I can train others to try and help them not have to go through what I went through and do it in the place that I want to, which is Israel. And so I combined those, and it's like the best decision ever was never giving up on being injured. If I had given up on being injured, I probably wouldn't have been a trainer. But now I get to tell that story not only as someone who was formerly injured, still am, but I also still play basketball. And I'm only in Israel, and I only know Joe, and I only know you because of basketball. It's the truth. Mm-hmm. And that is so clear to me at this point, and I'm never going to walk away from that.
So tell us a success story of somebody now who you've trained that maybe was in the same frame of mind of you a couple of years ago and found you and said, wow, I can be involved in this sport, which will bring meaning to my life.
100%. I'm going to leave. It's okay if I leave names out of it because he's currently a professional basketball player, but yep. I have a player that he didn't take care of his body much when it comes to nutrition or weight training or anything like that. And when he met me, he's Israeli, doesn't speak good English. When he met me, he was one of my players, kind of started to hear more about my story, but also the difference of if you actually put in the time and effort of checking those boxes, what it can do. He's also not the tallest player, so he has his own adversity that he deals with, but he is somebody who has paved himself a phenomenal, what I would deem as phenomenal currently career in Israel, and also potentially looking to branch out into Europe. And he's a bull. He's a monster now. And he used to weigh $150 soaking wet and didn't have any sort of confidence on the court. And he's a monster now. He can jump higher. He's athletic. And I've been training him for almost 4 years. Wow. And that's the first person that comes to mind. There are others, guys who I used to train on Maccabi, guys who are trained on Ness Tziyona, women's players who are in the WNBA and then come into Israel and play here in Israel for their off season. So girls that I can kind of help go back and forth who have won championships. But you know what? It's not just about like who makes it the furthest. Is it the NBA? It's honestly, I got to text somebody from, I know it's a little off topic, but I got a text from a former high school teammate who I don't really talk to that much. And when he saw the videos that you just played, which aren't necessarily directly correlated to me being a trainer, I remember I got a text from him saying, I want to let you know, I've been watching you from afar. I live in New York City. I hate my job. I quit today and I'm moving back to Boston to pursue my dream in whatever it was. And I did it basically because of you. Like you allowed me to see that I can actually just like throw this away and go after my passions. For me, if I can use my story as a vehicle to allow other people to do what they love, then that's all I need.
And so that's what both of you are going to do as you did Inter Aliyah, bringing the diaspora to Israel, but now you're going to do the reverse, which is you're going to take what you found in Israel and then bring it to us. So you're about to travel the country, but we're going to be LA specific right now because you're coming here. You're coming to our home in this beautiful gyms we have at Sinai Temple in LA, and you're going to bring a thing called Jab Step. So take us through Jab Step in that acronym. You told me off the air that it actually means 3 different things. And what are we going to expect this summer? And why do our kids want to come out and train and be competitive with you guys?
Joe?
Sure. So basically, Barak and I have a joint passion for basketball, and we wanted to do summer camps where we taught kids all the elite skills that they don't get because they don't work with pros like us. You know, we wanted to combine a ex-pro player with a current pro trainer and deliver like super high value skills to kids. But at the same time, we're both originally American, and we both moved to Israel. So we wanted to do it for a community that also had a lot of kids that might be in that type of a situation. So our camps are basically going to be mostly geared towards the basketball skilled side of things, but then a small portion of it will also speak to the kids who either are Jewish or have an interest in Israel, or might want to have a future of playing basketball in Israel, or might just want to come to Israel and have people when they come here.
Nice.
So our camps are going to be, geared towards those 2 topics. And like you said, we're coming to LA this summer. We have 4 other locations. We're going to be in Miami. We're going to be in Tucson, Arizona. We're going to be in New York. And, we see this as a long-term project to build a community and hopefully see some kids. My dream is to see a kid play pro in Israel as an American who never knew what Israeli basketball was or never thought that he would come over here, just like I was.
Who you met at Sinai Temple, right?
Yeah, hopefully I'll meet him at Sinai Temple. That would be
exactly. And then Barak, Jab, tell us what that means.
Yeah, so Jab, for those of you who don't know, Jab Step in the basketball, where you kind of jab at somebody, kind of first step towards the basket, creating space. Jab is also an analogy for getting hit in the face with adversity. It also stands for Jewish American basketball and Joe and Barak. And we kind of put that together because Joe and I, I think you can tell by now through our energy, kind of have that jab with it as we speak. I also want to mention the camps. I just lost my train of thought. I'll get back to it in a second. But yeah, that's Jab Step basketball for now.
And so Jewish American basketball. Let's talk about that for a second, because the famous, and I say this a lot on the show, the famous line from the movie Airplane, when the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar wants some light reading on the airplane, and they say, here's a book called Jews and Sports, right? But it's really changed these days from my good friend, and you probably know him, Tamir Goodman, from Ryan Terrell's story, from a Joe Alexander story, who's at West Virginia and rediscovers his Jewish roots from the land of Israel. Maybe describe Jewish American basketball and what that means today, and maybe what it can mean 5-10 years down the road.
Sure, I'll jump in. So as I said, basketball in Israel has grown in just my short time here. It's become a destination. So I think the biggest opportunity for Americans who have a Jewish background is that they can pursue being a professional basketball player. They can come over here, get an Israeli passport, live for 10 years as a pro over here. And not because it's a low level of basketball, but because they're welcomed, as people who can get Israeli passports. And also it's just a fun learning experience of discovering your heritage. And
so let's talk about exploring your heritage, right? You're living in Tel Aviv. Name a place that you go to when you now outside of Tel Aviv that you go to and you're like, oh my gosh, this really connects me either with the Torah, my Jewish heritage I didn't know about. What is that place? You're like,
Joe doesn't leave Tel Aviv, Rabbi Sherman.
Joe does leave Tel Aviv. He does. He goes to Ramat Gan.
So what do you see in Tel Aviv that you're like, wow, this connects me with my heritage? Not just
I got you. I was at the Dead Sea like 2 weeks ago. The Dead Sea is incredible. I don't care how cliche it is. When I go there, like my girl just wants to take a picture or two, and I'm like, no, I'm going out there to float. I'm going there. I treat the Dead Sea like my personal float tank. Like I fall asleep and bump into people. I love the Dead Sea. I love descending. When a lot of people haven't been there, obviously. When you drive, you descend. It's the lowest latitude on Earth. Yeah. Lowest point on Earth. Like you descend down these sand dunes. You just go deeper and deeper and deeper. Yeah, it's amazing. I love it. I feel like I'm journeying back in time.
It's actually interesting. This past summer when Auburn basketball team went to Israel, and Jay Billis, the ESPN commentator, was on that trip, and he has 2.2 million followers on Twitter, and he tweeted from the Dead Sea, and I texted him. I said, Jay, what you did in that tweet means more than just floating the Dead Sea. It means telling this story of this little small piece of land. We're going to Israel for the first time for my kids this summer. And my 9-year-old is like, he said this morning, but Israel's a really small place. I said, yeah, but small in geography, but gigantic in terms of what it means to the world. And so those tweets, those stories that you're telling me this morning mean so much more than just, a geographic location. Yeah, Barak, go ahead.
Sorry, B. I just want to mention when you talk about the geographical size. So I think of Israel as like the pituitary gland. Like it's so little. I mean, it's 60% of the size of Maryland. And if you look at Maryland on the map, you can't even see it. It's 60% the size of Maryland. It's like a pituitary gland. It's in charge of so much going. It's so important and such a cultural center. And because of that, it can become the center of so many people's lives, like it has for Barak and like it has for mine. So.
Yeah, Barak.
Yeah, all I was going to say, I thought it was pretty ironic. I was talking about jab step earlier and getting hit with jabs, and I got hit with one with the brain fart. But I remembered what I wanted to say, which is important. The camp itself, like one of the beauties about basketball is it has allowed Joe and I to meet not just Jews, but people from all across the world. That's what basketball is. It's an interfaith sport. You have people from all sorts of cultures and backgrounds and ethnicities. That's why I love basketball. And it's also allowed me to meet some of my best friends. So not only is our camp, yes, of course, we want to speak to those who maybe want to learn more about Israel, but also like it isn't just closed off just to the Jewish community. We want to be able to bring people together the same way basketball has brought us together. And that's how I met Joe, is solely just because of the sport itself, bringing up people who aren't necessarily Jewish together.
And Joe, is there a teammate either on Maccabi Tel Aviv or another team in Israel that was also transformed by this pituitary gland of a country?
Everybody. I can say that honestly, everybody. Every American that comes here says, now my family is like doesn't understand anything about this new country that I've fallen in love with. Everyone has that exact, and we as Americans, when we're here, American foreign basketball players, we sit around, on the weekends or in off season, we all say the same thing. We're like, I cannot believe the difference between what I thought Israel was before I ever came and now what I know Israel is now that I've lived here. Everybody is transformed by it.
And I believe you have a young child, right?
Yeah, I have a daughter. She's 2.5.
So maybe just, you don't have to talk about her specifically, but now what does that mean, bringing your child up in this Jewish state of Israel?
Well, I always having grown up in China, I always valued the idea and wanted my kids to grow up international. And I had always thought I would take them to Asia, but like Israel, I'm so happy that Israel is going to be that international place for her. Culturally, I couldn't hope for a better it's a melting pot of cultures. It's a melting pot of people. And what can I say? Like, it's funny to love a place, like you said, that's so small, I don't know. There's something about how tiny it is and how people love it here.
So we are in the NBA playoffs right now. So let me definitely get some projections from a person who played in the NBA. And what are we watching out there right now? What should we be looking for?
Guys, I don't watch basketball. I haven't been able to watch the NBA since I left, and I'm not about to start now.
You're not giving us a Laker projection here with LeBron coming back in the ripe old age?
Nothing, man, to be honest, nothing would make me happier than to watch LeBron win another ring. I love everything about LeBron. I love his legacy and what he's done. But most of all, I love that so many people dislike him for absolutely no reason or the wrong reasons. And I don't want to see LeBron win so much as I want to see all those people be quiet.
Interesting. Actually, it sounds like the Israel story, right? How people don't like a country for no other reason of just because they don't want to like a people or a country. And then who should we be looking for in the Israeli basketball league as the season sort of is coming to an end? Who is that player maybe from America that has, or around the world, that has come to Israel and has become a bright star there?
Well, I can say one quick. So actually, Jerron Blossomgamer used to play for the Cavs. He was my teammate for a team here called Nahariya, a city in the north of Israel that is just on the Lebanese border. And he was another one of those guys who came here and didn't know anything about Israel, fell in love with it. And then his career totally took off from just playing here 1 year. Now he plays for Monaco, one of the best teams. It's a powerhouse in Europe. And he'll be playing down the street from where I am against Maccabi Tel Aviv tonight, actually.
Oh, no way.
Yeah.
Wow. And Barak, who are you seeing in maybe an up-and-coming or somebody maybe in the Inter Aliyah group that you see rising up that we should look for?
I think AJ B. I mean, not as a player. He's a coach, obviously.
Yeah. It's funny. I was actually going to AJ is the coach of Inter Aliyah. And he's so set on what he wants with Inter plays in the 4th division. There's 5 divisions in Israel. Inter's in the 4th. It's considered a competitive but relatively low division. He is treating the organization and the league just as if it's an NBA organization, which is pretty fantastic.
Phenomenal.
And if you see like what he's been able to do, so I think, I think AJ will be a coach, a head coach somewhere. But I think that the project itself is pretty unique. Where I would say, and this is not just me saying this because I play for them, I really genuinely think that Inter Eliel will be in the first division. The concept of in 10 to 15 years,
it's the concept.
It's a proven concept. I mean, there's nothing else like it. And also, going back to what I just said, like AJ next year, he's going to recruit foreigners. He's going to bring in guys either from the third division or guys from the States.
The team's called Aliyah. Like, it's made for foreigners. That was actually his pitch to me. We went and sat down to lunch, and he said, Joe, you're an American. Like, you're in Israel. You need community. You don't speak good Hebrew. And we have a basketball team called Aliyah for guys like you. They're going to attract foreign talent.
You can put this on record, Rabbi Sherman. I really think it'll be in the first division for sure.
And so that team is made up of only people who are making Aliyah.
So there are Israeli natives who
Got
play, and one of them to mention is Meir Tapiro. He's arguably one of the top 10 Israeli basketball players of all time. Meir Tapiro is actually the person he was the GM when they hired me for Ness Tzionah. So now I'm on the court playing with him.
Mayor's his name, by the way. He's not a mayor of anything.
No, he also played for Yerushalayim, right?
Yeah.
For what?
Right.
He played for Yerushalayim.
Yeah. Meir. Meir and Yaniv Green. Both of them were on the Israeli national team. And it's very cool because, they're older than most of the other guys on the team, but being able to come back on the court. And so, no, the team is not just composed of people like myself or Joe. There are some Israeli natives.
But the concept is to attract these people who are coming to Israel.
Argentina.
And
everything.
I mean, I think it's fascinating also that when we lit the candles for Yom HaZikaron, Yom HaAtzmaut, that one of the people that was honored this year, I believe, was David Blatt, who coaches LeBron in the NBA. And the fact that not only an athlete, but a basketball coach specifically, because I'm very basketball specific often, is the one who is representing this country of Israel was a beautiful story to see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Blatt is huge here. And now that his son has come up, he plays for a EuroLeague team too. They're such a basketball family here in Israel.
And it's interesting, over this past year, I've seen a lot of, also specifically female players, come to play D1 here. Or they're the young woman at, I believe, Oklahoma right now, Lior Garzon or Villanova. What's that in terms of the recruitment of American colleges of Israelis? It seems like the pipeline's very strong.
Well, now even like in the women's league, some of the teams like Elitzur Ramla and Ashdod, like they're playing in the Women's Europe Cup, which is like relatively new. And so that's a stage set for a lot of these NBA or college WNBA players to come and get more exposure and continue to help themselves financially. I mean, I see basketball in Israel continuing to grow every year. The Denny's are going to get more exposed. The Yamadar is going to get more exposed. Maccabi, as Joe mentioned, they have another game in like an hour. I don't know when. The EuroLeague, they're 4 wins away from a EuroLeague championship.
On the women's side, it's funny because I was playing in Turkey a number of years ago. I think it was 5-6 years ago, and all of the WNBA girls would go play in Turkey or Russia in the offseason. Those were the destinations to make all the money. But now I live next door to the Maccabi practice facility, and every year, even every 6 months, because there's high player turnover during the season, I see higher and higher caliber American female players. Like I sit and talk with them. I see them coming in and out of the facility. Just like Israel becoming a destination for men's basketball, same thing for the WNBA players.
That's amazing. And so to conclude, let's get 3 things that we want out of Jab Step here at Sinai Temple. If you're going to send your child or your friend to Sinai Temple Jab Step with Barak Swarttz, Israeli basketball trainer, and Joe Alexander, former NBA, Milwaukee Bucks, Chicago Bulls, and Maccabi Tel Aviv star, what are our children going to get besides an amazing Shabbat dinner, by the way, at the end of the week?
Yeah, that's right. Great Shabbat. I'm not cooking, though. Thank God. Okay, so I'll start. So first of all, I want the kids to hear stuff they've never heard before from a pro who's been through the experience. Because I remember going to camps and not really hearing anything too insightful. So I want every day for the kids to go home and tell their mom, I learned this skill that I knew about before, but with a totally different angle. So I'm going to be on the court with the kids, walking them through the skills, showing them the footwork. And I want them to walk away like, I see Steph Curry do this. I see, professional players do this in the post. And now I understand the details behind it. So I'm going to teach them NBA style details to help improve their game.
I fully agree with him. I was going to piggyback and just say, like, all the things that Joe and I want to teach and show are the same things that Joe did to make it to the NBA and the same things that I do with current or former NBA, WNBA players or EuroLeague players. It's the same stuff. Of course, there are alterations and I augment things based off of the age, but I want them to feel like this is actually what it takes. This is a training regimen of what he did. And having Joe in the building and having a trainer who works with these guys, and we're coming from Israel, like we're here to tell our story. And I want them to be able to not only take away the 5 or 6 basketball tricks or the 5 or 6 athletic tricks that they got, but to understand that there maybe is another outlet and option of this career that I want to pursue that isn't necessarily just here, but on the other side of the world. And maybe this might spark my interest in going over there to learn about it. That would be unique too. The other thing, and before Joe, maybe you have another thing, but the other thing is I want them, every person that is under, from now on, forever, under the Jab Step organization wing, to know that Joe and I like are always available and that we're the same people on camera, in person. Like we're just like them, a kid with a dream and a basketball in their hands, and we want to help them make that dream reality. That's it.
Yeah. And then so the third one is I want the kids to go home and say to their parents, hey, I can play pro basketball in Israel. That's really what I want. I wish I would have known that when I was 15 years old.
Wow.
I wish I would have known it when I was 25. I didn't come here until I was 28. So I want the kids to know that. And then if they're interested, they can come in the next day and say, like, how exactly do I do that? And we can show them the path. You know, maybe not to play pro, but there's a lot of leagues over here and a lot of things to do with basketball.
That is amazing. Jab Step with Barak Swarttz and Joe Alexander, the 8th pick of the 2008 NBA draft with the Milwaukee Bucks and the Chicago Bulls. They will be here at Sinai Temple with Jab Step the week of July 17th to the 21st. Open to all, not just the Jewish community. JAB, Jab Step, Jewish American Basketball, coming right here to Los Angeles, where we have, I like to say, high-level basketball, high-level Jewish values, and a high level of Israel and Zionism right here at Sinai Temple. Barak and Joe, it's so great to see you. Looking forward to shaking your hand in a couple of weeks in Dizengoff, and then bringing you right back here to LA and teaching our children Zionism, Israel, basketball, and faith. So great to see you, and thanks for joining us on Rabbi on the Sidelines.
Thanks, Rabbi Sherman.
Go sign up.